Well, welcome everybody. This was not planned.
No.
See if my mic works. But first of all, let me get this right. It's all about grammar. The latest news reports in at least three newspapers, all feeding off each other, is that the Doctor Who star Ncuti Gatwa has been axed. Now, we're going to have to look at the timing, look at the evidence, and really look at this because the timing seems weird. Anyway, good to see you, Christian.
Good to be here.
I mean, it does seem a bit strange, doesn't it? This timing.
It seems strange to me, but I'm of the mind that there are a couple of factors at play. The first is that the finale's coming, and the scuttlebutt is the regeneration scene has already been shot. That means in just over a week, everyone's going to know that Gatwa is more or less leaving the show. The second factor that the news articles have shared that you've shared with me is that apparently there was blowback from him dropping out of hosting duties in
Yeah.
Eurovision, which
Yeah.
was not looked
Well, we'll
favorably upon by the BBC.
we will look at all this just so everybody knows. I just want to show that headline
Yeah.
that three national newspapers in the United Kingdom are saying that Ncuti Gatwa has been sacked, fired, dismissed. I will show you the evidence. I've put a question mark, everybody, because we've been here before in different ways, and I want to be fair. But we will look at every word of this. With two English teachers here, we'll look carefully, won't we? So that's in a nutshell what the saying's going on. Now, if I go bigger here, there's the sun. Now, remember, the sun is what everybody's been leaning on, saying that the mirror normally gets it wrong. Remember in February we did a cast then, and they said them, oh, the mirror says Doctor Who's been axed. It's wrong. It's wrong. And the Sun later on said there might be a hiatus. Well, in this case, Christian, both newspapers agree.
They do.
Now,
That says something.
right, let's have a look. Mirror says Ncuti Gatwa axed from Doctor Who after pulling out of the Eurovision presenting job. On the Sun here, we've got Doctor Who exterminated. Of course, let's get that verb in. BBC bin star Ncuti after Eurovision row. Now, if I zoom in a little bit more for everybody, because this is just hot to trot, Doctor Who star Ncuti Gatwa has been axed by the BBC after two series. Woke storylines have seen ratings plummet. Now that doesn't confirm anything. Let's get rid of that context. But the final straw for bosses came when Ncuti, 32, pulled out of the Eurovision Song Contest amid controversy over Israel's participation. A TV insider said it caps off a largely depressing tenure. The show is likely to be paused while bosses ponder its future. So I'll take my first pause there. Folks, I have got page after page of quotes here, so stick with us because we'll go through and check the tenacity of this. Christian, what are you thinking so far?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. You have to remember that they are looking for an excuse at this point to justify it. Just picture this. Let's say this was the height of the Tennant era or the height of the Matt Smith era. And for some reason, they pulled out of hosting Eurovision duties. Would they suddenly come back from the BBC and say you're fired? Absolutely not. They're looking for an opportunity, and this gave them one.
Now, I have to say, I promise you, we will go over the three newspaper articles, but as we go, we will interlace it with our thoughts as Doctor Who fans on what we think's going on, because you don't want bad news before the finale. That's clearly, the BBC must be thinking this through. For example, I'm going to say to you, Christian, why would the BBC, basically this is speculation, but why would the BBC have made a decision to sack him when they could do that in 2 weeks' time when the season's over and they've had their cinema release and everything?
It's a good question. I just keep thinking that they really wanted an opportunity to boost interest, let's say. We know that the outlier of the Interstellar Song Contest was exceptional, but an outlier. The downward trajectory of views is significant. And this way they can somehow gallop a little bit of input because the audience can confirm must be a regeneration. Maybe that will bring more
Christian,
eyes.
Christian, you've got an issue with your. I know this is ironic. I have an issue with my mic normally. Your audio's dipping in and out. Whether you want to just reboot and come back, and I'll just carry on.
Well, yeah, why don't you carry on? Let me
Yeah.
see if I can reboot. I don't know. This hasn't happened to me before.
Yeah, don't worry. I know it's like that for me. So let me just take everybody through this as well as I can. So the Sun, remember, it's not the journalist that everyone talks about. This is their TV editor. Anyway, Doctor Who's been exterminated. Doctor Who's wokest ever lead star, Ncuti Gatwa, axed after just 2 series, with show to be paused after ratings nosedive. Insiders believe a streaming giant which has pumped in millions will not renew its deal. Well, a lot of us have been saying that. So far, that's nothing new, is it? Right. And just to show you that I'm only going live now because I've got 3 different newspapers saying the same thing. And they didn't do that last time. So you've got the Daily Express there. You've got the Sun, the Belfast Live's jumping on it. And you've also got the Mirror. You've got 4 newspapers there, right? So I haven't just jumped the gun on one thing. And I will question this, but there you go. So, just so you can see, I've tried to corroborate as much as I can. And again, almost the same wording, because I think they're feeding off each other. Let's be frank, that's what seems to be happening there. But let's look at the Sun article. Now remember, this is the context. We had the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday night. They made the Interstellar Song Contest for the Doctor Who series. And of course, RTD thought this was a fantastic wheeze to have Doctor Who replicating really the vibe of the Eurovision on the same night. And one of the masterpieces of that was that our lead actor, Ncuti Gatwa, would be delivering the jury verdict from the UK jury. And so, of course, he could be all glamorous, give us a few more headlines, that sort of thing. But as you probably know, that did not happen. 2 minutes after it was confirmed Israel were in the final, after getting through from the semi-final, 2 minutes later, there was a press statement. And this is what the press statement said. So I'll just confirm this, everybody, because this is what every paper is blaming this apparent axing on. So, due to unforeseen circumstances, unfortunately, Ncuti Gatwa is no longer able to participate as spokesperson during the grand final this weekend. However, we're delighted to confirm we can use Disco Diva Sophie Ellis-Bextor. So basically, unforeseen circumstances. A lot of us went, really? Only 2 minutes after it said Israel was in the final, they released that. You can have unforeseen circumstances, you can have illness, you can have loads of things going on. I understand that. Not everything's about Doctor Who. But the 2 minutes then got us all thinking this was fishy. So basically, here we go, this is what the Sun started to say tonight. Excuse me. Ncuti Gatwa has reportedly been axed as the Time Lord, as his departure from hosting the Eurovision Song Contest is said to have hammered the move. Doctor Who's leading star has reportedly been axed by the BBC after just 2 series. I know, don't they always repeat themselves? According to reports, there is no replacement likely for the Time Lord before his regeneration at the end of this month. Yeah, they've already filmed it. Ncuti has reportedly been axed after he backed out of hosting the Eurovision Song Contest last weekend. And just what I said then, he was then replaced by Sophie Ellis-Bextor. I'll just show a little bit more, Christian, and then we'll start to really discuss this. I've also got David Tennant moving in and defending him. But the statement carries, they're giving you the statement about why he wasn't in the Eurovision. So I've already told you that one. I won't repeat that. And then near the bottom there, the move left many fans speculating that Ncuti had withdrawn due to the controversial decision to allow Israel to partake in the contest. Just 2 minutes after Israel qualified for the final, the BBC announced he would no longer be involved. Reports have since claimed the Eurovision decision hammered his Doctor Who axe. If the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, it was well and truly hammered in after that, a source told The Sun, so a source. His withdrawal was incredibly embarrassing. It caps what has been a largely depressing tenure in the TARDIS for Ncuti. What your thoughts, Christian?
Again, this was inevitable. Am I still echoing?
No, you're fine.
Okay, I just don't want this to
Don't
be a
worry.
problem.
Go on, just
Yeah, it seems that this was an inevitability. He's already on a downturn. There's already a lot of blowback. They've already done a regeneration scene. They have to have something to hang their hats on when they make it official and they're letting him go. This provides that avenue. They only have to survive another 9 days. They just have to get from here to the 31st.
There's a lot of things that can be in play, right? Number one, I will always say this is a question mark. 3 newspapers say he's been axed. No confirmation, no denial from the BBC yet. Please tell me in the thread if you see it. But it's a question mark. But the timing is interesting because nearly every Doctor Who fan worth their salt, Christian, has said it's going to be an open-ended regeneration. That seems to be what everyone has agreed upon. Now, if it's an open-ended regeneration, that means he was already leaving, doesn't it? Or does it mean that we don't know what's happening next regarding who's the showrunner, whether Disney's involved or not? And because it's all in flux, sorry for the pun, the BBC thought it was a good idea to show an open-ended regeneration. And let's face it, that means a new showrunner can still bring Ncuti back in 2 years' time if they so wish, because he hasn't changed. And we've been there before, Christian. You can have a false dawn with these regenerations.
You can. It's possible that that would have been one of the avenues they were going to pursue. You're right. There's nothing official coming out of the BBC. You know, when you're getting just media reports, that means someone is leaking something, or someone is actually just printing for press. But given the scuttlebutt leading up to today, I would not be surprised if there's some veracity to what we're hearing.
Yeah. I'll just bring in a few of the thread. The thread needs to be really helpful tonight because as I go through the articles, and we really will tease them out. We're not just jumping the gun going, oh, it's all over. We're going to really look. We haven't seen much evidence yet. They've listed one source, haven't they? And they've got this keyword hammered. So I can understand the BBC not being happy, but again, the timing doesn't make sense to me on the finale. Why don't you just wait? It would serve as no purpose to say we're sacking him when he was leaving anyway. So that tells me they were going to just deliberately leave it open. And if Ncuti wanted to carry on in 2 years' time when they decide to come off the hiatus, which seems to be what most people are thinking, then it's all left there. Harry Stewart, Gatwa left of his own accord and the advice of his agent due to the poor ratings Doctor Who was getting and to reduce any damage to his career. That would make sense regarding avoiding the Israel thing because he doesn't want trouble, does he? Especially if he's, not feeling as though he's feeling too committed. Paul Richards, they'll replace Gatwa with whoever. TARDIS Travels, Jeremy, remember I've sent you a message if you can get on from your email. The book stops at the top and RTD needs to own it. I only did a stream last week about Straczynski moving to the UK. He might be 70, but he's now got UK citizenship. Is he taking over? Everyone thought that was the longest of long shots. The fact that he's moving over, he doesn't like the Trump decision in America. A lot of Americans have therefore moved from the lovey industry. So, people were saying, he can put a good spin on it. But he is in Britain and he has got an apartment in London and he's got UK citizenship. I mean, you'd like that, Christian, would you? Straczynski taking over?
Well, I trust his creative skills. He's proven himself before.
So, XSM, the woke and gaslighting stuff doesn't bother me because I just ignore it. But what does upset me is just that. We're not getting intelligent storylines anymore. Now, folks, I've promised you I'll show you as much as I can at the moment, and I'll come back to the thread. So let's continue with this, because where is the evidence, Should we go to bed, or is this really good? Ncuti has been vocal in his support, of the Free Palestine graffiti in Italy on his Instagram, and he posted links to fundraisers for Palestinian causes. He has remained silent on the reason behind his exit from the Eurovision gig. This month, there have been plenty of rumours about the future of the show. Oh yeah, we've all heard them, amid claims the Disney funding could be withdrawn. Now, remember, is this any evidence yet that he's left? However, sources on the sci-fi series, blah, 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 about how much it costs, he is said to have almost completed scripts for Series 16 and Series 17. That's Russell T. We all know that one. I said that was said almost 2 years ago in his Imagine documentary, so that's nothing new either. This is because a huge chunk of the extra budget, 10 million, this is a repeat from my, I did a show on Friday, and this is a repeat from that. So at the moment, no news there. Then it says, when Doctor Who began its partnership with Disney, there was additional funding in place. Right, so that's just that's a dead page. Blah, 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 blah. And then one insider says, whether or not Disney stays, the expectation is that the show will continue, but there will be gaps. Now, we have had this discussion before on Doctor Who is Axed, ? That was the Mirror. Nearly everybody poo-pooed it in the end. We then got the Sun doing another article 2 months later saying it's going into hiatus. So that's the context. But the Sun here has said that they're doing a lot of heavy duty on that word hammered, aren't they, Christian?
They are. The fact that they've all chosen the same verbiage suggests that that's the word that whatever leaking source had shared with them. And it does emphasize the point that is being made.
So this is from the Mirror, I think it is. A TV insider said if the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, it was well and truly hammered in after the Eurovision Song Contest. Bosses were incredibly disappointed. Ncuti as the Doctor is one of the corporation's most high-profile faces, right? I can imagine that, Christian, the disappointment that you line it up. I mean, come on. The whole of BBC One on Saturday night was lined up like this a mashup of Doctor Who and Eurovision. So you need your lead actor to be part of the follow-up, don't you? It's extra publicity. People who hadn't watched the Doctor Who episode might go, oh, there's a Doctor Who special, or, that sort of thing. It just adds more publicity. JNT would have been all over this like a rash. So for him to back out 2 minutes before, after Israel was confirmed as in the final, looked dubious. None of us had evidence that he might have had a family drama or something else. But then, only days later, we get this sort of gossip about people who were unhappy. In other words, So the Sun continues. His withdrawal was incredibly embarrassing. It caps what has been a largely depressing tenure in the TARDIS for Ncuti. Quotation marks. Okay. It's another insider. It's unlikely we will see who Ncuti regenerates into, as the Beeb will keep options open. And if they do rest the show for years, it makes it virtually impossible to cast someone now. Christian, I feel as though we're getting two different stories going on here. They're not happy with Ncuti on Saturday night, and what they were probably going to do with the series anyway.
Well, a part of me wonders, maybe this is just conjecture on my part. What if this was literally to rattle Gatwa? He embarrassed them. Previously, we knew he was on his way out by his own initiative. But because he embarrassed the BBC, they decided they're going to embarrass him in turn by saying he's fired. The idea is he doesn't want to make waves. He wants his move to Hollywood to be smooth. And he may have lost that opportunity.
I mean, that would shock me, really, if it got that kind of,
heady.
Yeah. Raymond Williams here. Millie Gibson fell out with RTD and was gone. Ncuti will have fallen out with RT and now he's gone. We need RTD to go next. The thing is, Raymond Williams, me and Christian, and we're not the only ones, we heard lots of rumours about the fact that RTD was in trouble because of how he dealt with Disney. We also heard from a couple of sources that Ncuti behind the scenes is very awkward and difficult to work with. That was a rumour. And that's the reason why Millie Gibson apparently was kind of removed and then, just for tidy up everything this season. These are all rumours. And I dismiss rumours quite quickly sometimes. But if we keep coming back to this patchwork quilt of news, you do have to start questioning, is there something in this? So thanks, Raymond, for that. Can everybody in the thread keep an eye on if the BBC ever dares tonight to deny it? Yeah. Eastlyn Burkholder, his agent would break both ankles if he did Eurovision. Well, yes, it was easier to avoid the issue because I think there was a suspicion that Israel could actually win the Eurovision. And the thought that Ncuti Gatwa might announce that the United Kingdom has given 12 points, 12 points to Israel, I think was maybe beyond the pale. XSM, RTD has to go. Well, I know that's almost like a different stream, isn't it? We all know where the issue is here. He decided to pick Ncuti. We've heard the rumours that there was maybe somebody else in place. He put all his eggs in Ncuti, the new stunner that, in the next 4 years will be big in Hollywood. We know how RTD sold this. And of course, yeah, RTD can't dislocate himself from it either. John, I suspected that Millie became disillusioned with the... You nearly caught me then. But yes, a bit of a disaster. Yes, Boomer, it's a surprise. Last time when I did the Doctor Who asked question mark when in February, I was supposed to be packing my suitcase for getting on a plane. This time, it was just instead of bed, But honestly, Christian, I know this is when the papers drop, isn't it, in the United Kingdom? You know what I mean? It's like about 10 at night they do all the newspaper previews for the next day, so to speak. So this is when they do land. So it's either bed or you actually talk about it. But we're Doctor Who fans, aren't we, Christian? Could you go to bed now? I couldn't.
It's hard. And I still have one more day of work this week.
Is that Sky? He's already filmed his regeneration scene. That's what we all think and understand, isn't it? A lot of people are saying it's Billy Piper. Well, Christian, could you live with that? Because I've heard it could be Belinda. I've heard it could be Billy Piper. I've heard that the next Doctor, it could be open-ended. There's 3 different versions. They can't all be true.
I hesitate to think that they have a person because they need the open-end option. If they're committed to coming back in 2027, yes, you can kind of put a person in. But if they need to extend the hiatus longer, you can't hold an actor to that. And the actor's going to age anyway in the interim. So they've got to make sure it's open.
Yeah.
If it were someone that I already knew, like Billy Piper, I would be unhappy because this irrevocably ties this Doctor to being a previous character. Having a one-off for Colin Baker or Peter Capaldi is one thing, but having someone who was a companion for several years, that is another matter entirely.
Well, you know that the rumours are all to do with it possibly ties the bi-generation back, David Tennant back, that sort of thing, that we're back. Because Rose Noble's back, so there is a possibility that we see the Nobles again, possibility. I know Rose Noble as a character is in the finale. So I know there's a few people out there who said, actually, Brendan, cope with this 2-year thing, this fantasy thing, because it's going to join up again. I wouldn't mind that in a degree if we could, but then why would you toy with the audience for 2 years? Anyway, the reason I was mentioning this kind of tying it up again is because why did the 14th Doctor appear as David Tennant? And the plot line was kind of because he needed somebody, he needed to see Donna, didn't he? And he needed to kind of sort that out. And there was that kind of element in the plot that he needed to be David Tennant in visual again. Well, the other version is he needs to be Billy Piper or Rose in Outlook. And maybe, you see, Christian, I never knew why out of every name under the sun, RTD decided to give Yasmin Finney the name Rose Noble instead of calling her Belinda Noble or calling her Nolly Noble? I mean, why did he pick Rose? Rose is on point. So
It was on point.
is something going to happen? And by the way, everybody, I don't want to depress you all, but when everybody's going, oh, it's going to be Billy Piper or it's going to be Belinda Chandra, Yasmin Finney, her character Rose Noble, did have regeneration energy blasted through it in Starbeast, everybody. I'm just going to say there.
Well, one of the theories I've often joked about was that I was picturing Gatwa being killed off and bequeathing the key to the TARDIS to Yasmin Finney. I could picture RTD doing something like that.
Now,
it's in keeping with his priorities.
Now, I know people are talking about echoes and stuff like that. My mic sometimes is very fascinating. So tonight, as long as I'm not sounding like a Dalek, I'm happy. But John Yulden, good to see you. So we're trying our best. I'm going to show you more of the articles and that. If the show was being recommissioned, they would have announced it before now. I agree with that. Michael McIntyre and other shows, I listed them the day. Gladiators, White Lotus. I know that's not BBC. All that stuff. All the news about the show. All the news about the show is negative. Brendan, sorry, but how could Gatwa come back if there was an open regeneration? John, I know I'm thinking on my feet, but we can. I think the reason I'm saying that John is, allow me because it's midnight. We've had this in the past where RTD's had a false dawn that David Tennant's doctor is going to regenerate, cliffhanger. You see all his, Tinkerbell regeneration dust to be continued. And then basically, cop out, he grabs a hand jar. And then he becomes David Tennant again. That's what I mean, John. You could just see him going, oh, I'm going now. And the TARDIS may be flying off into space. And you're going, oh, God, he's regenerating. But unless you see another face, he could easily stop. Remember, Peter Capaldi kind of had 2 regenerations. The Cyberman story, World Enough in Time, when he was going to regenerate. And then they brought him back for the Christmas one. And they even had that bit when he kept putting his regeneration energy into the snow. I will not regenerate. I need to do a Christmas special. I will not, So that's what I mean, John. They've done it twice to us already.
I think it's possible, but if this kind of news is leaked, it locks RTD in to not using Gatwa because it's a formal dismissal of the actor. So it closes that option.
Christian, we all, as Doctor Who fans, know that Chris Eckleston left or wasn't voluntarily left. Remember, Gary Lee did some work recently. People know Gary Lee from DWB. Check out his Facebook page. But Gary Lee recently joined some dots together and said it is a moot point whether Chris Eckleston just left and let them down, which is the version that they've tended to tell you, but actually because he stood up for the people at the bottom, the backroom people, and he stood up to some of the producers about their treatment, that actually they thought, no, we're getting rid. Now, if that had any integrity, Christian, this is the second time RTD's team have sacked a doctor.
Without knowing the man, I get the impression that it's not very difficult to run afoul of RTD as a personality. You are in total agreement with him 100% of the time under all conditions, or you're on the outs, and maybe that's part of what we're seeing.
Sorry, I'm trying to get an email to you, TARDIS Travels, at the same time as speaking. Let's have a look. I'll go through the articles a bit more in a minute. Pixel, he's already filmed his regeneration scene. Yep. A lot of people are saying it's Billy Piper. Have I read you? No, that's somebody else's. I think we all have heard that. Yes, it is a possibility. Let's just jump down to a few more details. Has anybody seen any confirmations yet? Anybody from the BBC or any denials? I need to just kind of jump back to this. I can't do everything at once here, so I'm just going to keep
It's
jumping.
hard.
So, let's jump to this. So, the Sun article from tonight, they're the ones who said he's axed. In fact, to be honest, everybody, if you've joined us late, can I please just show you the front of the article? There it is. Doctor Who exterminated. BBC bins star Ncuti after Eurovision row. So I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being a giddy little Doctor Who fan. I've actually got copies of 4 newspapers saying the same thing tonight. So I thought it was time I showed you all. So Ncuti, who appeared with Millie Gibson, blah, 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 yeah. They had high expectations in 2022. And they mentioned drag queen Jinx Monsoon was amongst the flops. As stated, says the BBC last night, the decision on season 3 will be made after season 2 airs. Oh, that old chestnut again. Then Rod McPhee, he's the TV editor who has put his name on this article. Again, let me just kind of remind everybody where I'm getting this from. Here, you can see Rod McPhee's name, exclusive by Rod McPhee, right? So the Sun, who have normally been saying Doctor Who's going on to hiatus, is suddenly running on this, the same newspaper, okay? So just so everybody can see where I'm getting this from. And then he's written within the article, demise is a disgrace. Doctor Who's demise is a national scandal. It is part of the fabric of British culture, once the envy of the world. The rot set in when the BBC handed the reins back to RTD. Rather than reverse the walkaway, and I can never say that, and go back to basics, he went for broke and he wrecked it. Now remember, this is now the press turning. What an embarrassment that at one stage this BBC series had just over 1.5 million watching a world famous show in prime time Saturday night. Haven't I been saying that every week and people slag me off? That's what I was saying just the other day. Doctor Who ratings in terminal decline. And yeah, aside from the woke stories, did they think fans wanted to see a Time Lord strutting around in skirts and skimpy vests, dissolving into tears at every turn? Ice in the show might be the best way to salvage the memory of it. Now, Christian, I've noticed this. The press have taken a long time to suddenly, it's like an oil tanker turning round. Suddenly, they are gunning for Doctor Who, and they were defending it last year.
They were, but that tells you the loss of capital that the show has experienced over the last 12 months. Previously, they were willing to defend it. There was the possibility, they said, that this season would be darker, grittier, more powerful, more compelling. And what did we get? And look at the views continue to drop off. Consider that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to look after everybody tonight regarding the article itself. You can see I've got a bit more here. But since you've just mentioned the viewing figures, that's the state of play we're in. 2.57 was seen as a nice uplift on the overnights, but we just had 2 of the lowest ever. Lucky Day in the Story and Engine and on their consolidated. And as you know, if you haven't seen it, it was this show I did just a few days ago. With that thumbnail, Doctor Who ratings in terminal decline, ? Because I like to be fair. But I had a lot of data that technically between 38% and 34% down between Space Babies and Story in the Engine. That whether you want to judge the overnights, whether you want to judge the 7 days, or you want to judge the consolidated, I've done every metric. And it goes between 38% down, loss of audience, between 1.3 million and 1.1 million. These are big figures. Meanwhile, Christian, I also showed everybody in that show that Racing Across the World on BBC One later at night has actually increased its audience. So all this rubbish about, this is the way the world is. No. And also, Christian, how does this work? On Christmas Day, Joy to the World was on, and they say, terrestrial TV's dead, there's no family audiences, and then suddenly, 4 million appear to watch Wallace and Gromit. Suddenly, you do a Eurovision spectacular, Doctor Who, apparently, to get all the Eurovision fans, and as soon as Doctor Who finishes, 3 million extra Eurovision fans arrive. Sorry, the audiences are still there. It's just nobody wants to watch Doctor Who.
Well, they have to play with the numbers. Remember, this is all about spinning, and they are spinning like tops. We know that there is an audience if the material is good. They're trying to justify that it's just the changing culture. It's not.
So good to find everybody in here. Please, if you've got any questions, we will answer them because we've got the evidence and we will question. We're not just going to waffle on and say, oh, this must mean it's true. These are newspapers after all. And it is like a feeding frenzy. One paper has jumped on the same quotes as the other one. So we're all relying on the Sun in this case. Now, as you can see here, let's just see if we can glean any more. Now, yeah, that's nothing new. That's from another newspaper. They're quoting again due to unforeseen circumstances that nobody knows about. And then they're repeating this hammered his Doctor Who axe. Now, notice this is a different newspaper. A source told the Sun. So they're actually saying the Sun is the lead here. If the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, it was well and truly hammered in after that. His withdrawal was incredibly embarrassing. It caps what has been a largely depressing tenure in the TARDIS for Ncuti. That's all quote. Wow. You can see and hear the anger there, can't you?
Without a doubt. They keep going back to hammering. They really want to drive this point home.
Yeah. Well, the disappointment must be massive. I mean, this was the most expensive Doctor Who episode. In many ways, it delivered. It held together regarding the quality of the production. I have other question marks, and you've seen my streams on that. But this is the one. This is the one that was going to kind of launch the finale and get the world buzzing about Doctor Who again. And for your lead actor to suddenly say last minute, remember, last minute, I can't do it. And what did he have to do, Christian? He had to be like in a booth like this going, these are the results of the UK jury, yeah, and some pathetic little comment. He'd have his fancy garb on so he can show off his diva doctor credentials. And then he would just say, right, in reverse order, blah, blah, blah. And 12 points comes from blah, 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 2. And he leads you on for 3 seconds. And then he goes, Albania, something like that. That's basically all he had to do. And he couldn't do it. So either he was extremely ill, but I haven't heard he's in hospital. It was announced 2 minutes after it was confirmed Israel was in the final. We know that he has, like in the second paragraph, Ncuti has been vocal in his support for Palestine as he shared photos of Free Palestine graffiti in Italy on his Instagram account, and he posted links to fundraisers for the Palestinian causes. And he's remained silent for the rest of the time. John Eulden here. So Jinx Monsoon telling us to get lost because more new fans who love the show would come in. How do you feel now? Yes, they'll be asking us to get off the fields of grass now. And actually, will you please start watching? Kevin, good to see you. If we assume he was already leaving, could these leaks just be a wait to get viewers for the finale? It is very possible, cynically, but just like when there were rumours last year that Millie Gibson had been sacked, remember those ones? And the BBC didn't confirm or deny. Now, I said there must be something in it because she then came back. She's coming back and she's in the finale. So she wasn't technically sacked. Whether she was just finished early and they give her a sop to come back, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But I see what you're saying, Kev. But I don't. It's all about PR for the BBC, and why would they want this to even be said by somebody? What's everybody thinking in the thread regarding because we can't believe everything. Your gullibility can be high sometimes. Disney wanted to have a platform for indoctrinating kids, wanted to pole vault niche sci-fi into the mainstream. I mean, remember, it looks as though the finale might have, the Rani is his sister. There's various nonsenses going on. I call that, Christian, soap opera.
Well, it is soap opera. But It's possible, looking back at the Millie Gibson debacle, that there were problems that led them to terminate her story less effectively than they had planned originally. Naturally, RTD is going to spin it that this was the way he wanted to go. He wanted to pattern it after the nobody character of Rey in The Last Jedi, because that moved him so much. But sometimes it's a matter of looking at the cards you're dealing and finding a way to spin a different decision. It's possible that there was a different way for the series to be resolved, but this changes the lay of the land. As for Gatwa being pro Palestine and anti Israel, and that being an issue because of his social media accounts, it could well have been there was chatter behind the scenes. If Israel places and he can't comfortably and justifiably present, he's going to have to step away. We don't know what the conversation was behind, but the one telling factor is this. If it had nothing to do with him, if it was a decision made by someone else because of his social media accounts, he could have come back and said that it was not wholly his choice, but he respects their decision. He remained silent.
Well, you see, this is the key moment tonight, everybody, to keep an eye on. Ncuti's agent, will they deny it? Will they confirm it? Because it's damaging. Right, okay. If the Palestinian story is true, that he could not be the UK jury verdict because he didn't want to be involved with the Eurovision. I mean, I've got this quotation up here. This is from Juno Dawson, but you get the vibe about how some of these people think. And Juno Dawson said, my opinion is that participating nations should agree to a morality clause. Anything which reflects poorly on the Eurovision Broadcasting Union or vitally threatens free, fair and unbiased voting should equal disqualification. Eurovision has strict rules about political content, and at present Israel's involvement is intrinsically political. The finale result cannot be accurate or fair. Now, Juno Dawson wrote the blooming episode, and then you've got Ncuti, who mysteriously disappears and can't announce the results, and it could have been given Israel the full 12 points from the UK. Now, that's kind of, that stirs the pot, doesn't it? Because you think, right, what is going on here? And actually, the other day, David Tennant then bulled in to defend Ncuti. So, for example, here, if I've got the right page, it comes after David Tennant defended the current Doctor after receiving harsh criticism for his time in the TARDIS. David Tennant said he feels kind of protective of the other actors. Here we go. Ncuti Gatwa defended by David Tennant over cruel Doctor Who backlash as he addresses rumours. Okay? Ahead of the Eurovision Song Contest, where Ncuti Gatwa will be the UK's ambassador, actor David Tennant has defended him as he continues to receive lots of criticism. And so, it's as if, what's he call it? All the wagons have got in the circle to defend themselves. I know, Joe Chapman, I know. But this has happened regarding the Eurovision. Now, Juno Dawson and Ncuti Gatwa, I'm guessing, are on the same page regarding Eurovision and Israel's inclusion. So, if we all believe that, and remember the 2 minutes announcement was interesting. So if we do believe that, then you've got to believe the next bit, which is that the BBC will have been highly disappointed that their big spectacular night with Eurovision and Doctor Who Eurovision dovetailing together, and then your lead man just goes walkies. It is disappointing. I don't know if is it a sackable offence, or is it, well, we were going to hold the role for you while we're going to hiatus, but actually bog off. I don't know if that's kind of done it. Or whether RTD has been furious because RTD and Juno Dawson wrote the episode, and RTD has put it this way, Christian. He could have, RTD, if rumours are true, maybe he's not quite sacked. He might be hanging on by his fingernails. And there has been a dispute with Disney. And he put all his eggs in the basket of Ncuti, even when they said another actor had already got the role and that to pay him off. So basically, if RTD has put an awful lot of energy into Ncuti, and Ncuti can't be bothered to just read out 12 points to whoever country, even RTD, who adores him, might have felt really let down.
Well, it's highly probable. RTD does not suffer disappointment graciously. And if someone has disappointed him, he can be particularly pointed to them. So he spent a lot of time and energy supporting Gatwa in defense against a lot of pressure from other quarters not to cast him or not to keep him. And now this is an embarrassment. It could well be that he was the one person who was keeping Gatwa in the picture. And the moment this happened, he removed his shield and said, okay, I'm not going to protect you anymore.
Yeah, well, that is a distinct possibility. You know, everybody thinks, oh, RTD's been sacked. There's no Disney. Bad Wolf has been sacked. You know, if you want to go for the nuclear option, it's there. But you know how the BBC work. I was only talking to John Yulden about this earlier. His dad had been high up in the BBC, and politics. The BBC tend to be risk averse. And so there is a possibility that they were going to let Doctor Who limp on. So, but he makes a good point here. Are you aware of Gary Lineker, Christian?
No, I'm not.
He was our England captain in the 1980s and early 1990s. Football, good old football, soccer. And when we got to the we got to the World Cup semi-final, and we were beaten by Argentina and all the rest. Anyway, Gary Lineker is up there. He's one of the. He had the Golden Boot, which means he scored the most goals in the World Cup finals. And then he presented our Match of the Day program for the last 20 odd years. He's very, very high profile at the BBC, sports presenter, but he's very political. And he has been really embarrassing the BBC with his tweets. He's been very pro-Gaza and very anti-Israel. And this week, he finally had to leave the BBC because of a meme he reposted. So John Yulden's saying here, Gatwa and Lineker in the same week? Then it certainly seems like the BBC, if true, are trying to push back against all the pro-Palestine narrative. I don't know what's going on at the BBC. Who knows? It's such a large organisation. But it does look as though if Lineker's definitely true. He's definitely leaving. If Gatwa is leaving too, it is possible that the BBC are just going, we're taking too much flack here, so we need to throw somebody under the bus.
That is very reasonable. We often hear of decisions made that are expedient. And Lineker fit the profile of an expedient sacrifice. Gatwa may similarly fall into the same paradigm.
So what can hear? I'm so glad they got. I mean, Sophie Ellis Bextor's lovely. I thought they might get Catherine Tate back like the year before, but I'm also glad they didn't get back her either. Meg Loss, Ncuti's long gone. That's why he's pulled out, because he knew the BBC no longer had leverage over him. He's not leaving Doctor Who because he pulled out of the Eurovision. It's the other way around. In many ways, I think people are just wanting. I think people want a course correction in Doctor Who. So whatever forces it, we want to get there. This is not hammering Ncuti. This is not even hammering RTD, although, yeah. I'm trying to be really fair here. I think we just want a course correction. And whatever forces it, I'll take it. And whether the BBC and RTD's hand has been forced in the last week because they're going, do you know what? We have defended this programme. We've put all our energy into you, Ncuti, and we're launching your Hollywood career by giving you this job, and you can't be bothered to read out the blooming results. I can kind of see it. Eastern Burkholder, BBC wants to be, yeah, I mean, there's all that in politics, I understand. And I think all of us Doctor Who fans, come on. I'm not after all the nonsense when people say, oh, well, you had the Green Death. You had the Curse of Peladon. You had, Doctor Who's always been woke. No, it hasn't, because the word wasn't being used in that way. Secondly, the Doctor Who's always been political. Christian, I think I could list on maybe a few hands the really political stories. But I'm sorry, no. Most weeks Doctor Who was escapism.
It is. It's supposed to deal with social and political issues through allegory. It's not supposed to be a sledgehammer. RTD is entirely dedicated to driving home his points like a hammer, driving a nail into wood.
I mean, look at this. I mean, Lee Smith, we want sci-fi. Sonny Waffles. Sonny Waffles, by the way, I've put the message in. I've sent you and Jeremy links to come on if you can. I think people don't want politics and entertainment, not over such polarizing topics. No, they want... And RTD promised that we'd get in the TARDIS, it would be a safe space for just kind of getting away from the news. And what are we talking about? Israel and Palestine. What's this got to do with Doctor Who? And this is what I mean. They've allowed it. It's like mission creep, isn't it? Yes, Doctor Who sometimes had a generalised political message. It was normally quite nuanced. Now it is so on the nose. We have mentioned, haven't we, Christian? I mean, some of the episodes this season where basically it's like speech time.
It's embarrassing. I know what a good story sounds like. I know what a good story looks like. We aren't getting good stories, but we are getting a very heavy dose of proselytizing from RTD, and that's exceedingly distasteful. And it will chase away the general audience. You've got three types of audience. You've got the diehard Whovians who will watch no matter what because it's got the label Doctor Who on it. You've got the more discerning fans in a broader loop around that. And beyond that, you have the millions of casual viewers that you want to attract. These are the people that give you the numbers that really spike things. And we aren't bringing any of those people in based on how RTD is writing this content. It's embarrassing because we know what Doctor Who can be when it's written to its best effect.
Well, look at this. Boomer Doug in Australia, one of our detoxers, also on Who Night. And, by the way, shall we just say congratulations for becoming a granddad. Well done. Well, and more his son and his daughter-in-law. But yes, it's happy news. There may be lots of sad news about Doctor Who, but Boomer Doug, he's a granddad. So everybody send him a nice message. Boomer Doug, what's really sad is that so much damage has been done to Doctor Who. I no longer care. And how many Doctor Who fans feel like this? I adore Doctor Who. I missed the William Hartnell ones because I wasn't technically here. I missed the Patrick Troughton ones because I wasn't technically here. Jeremy wasn't there either, but he's now here, and I'm going to shut my face for a second. Hello, Jeremy. I don't know how long I've got you for, but what are you thinking about this? Are we right to be cynical, or do you think it's on the money?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
He's got
Hello. Hello.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, you're on live now. If you
Oh,
want to
right.
give us
Sorry.
your opinion.
Yeah, well, it was quite predictable, wasn't it? This was going to happen.
Where do you stand on this? As people know, Jeremy, one of my panelists, but Jeremy has kind of absented himself from this era for various reasons. But the thing is, you know, we can't just jump on a grave here, can we? What I'm saying is, Jeremy, do you believe this? Because we were discussing Doctor Who axing ? In February, and then, as you know, the BBC pushed back on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, as I say, I think we knew it was coming, and the Sun's just really confirmed what the Mirror's reported as well. So
Yeah,
it's not really good for the show in the sense that it's not a great headline when you're coming up to the penultimate story.
Look, how many times have we been there before? We had when Chris Eckleston had brought Doctor Who back, and then suddenly we heard he was leaving. Hello, that was great news, wasn't it? Not. Then we had the trial of a Time Lord, and suddenly, Colin Baker was leaving, and all the rest of it, and we're going, what the hell's going on? Then we had the Paul McGann special, and it was popular in Britain, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. and in the end, nothing happened. We've kind of, I feel as though, and so many Doctor Who fans, Jeremy, have said that this era has a smell of the 80s.
Very much so. It's history repeating itself, isn't it? 1986, 85, 86.
Yeah, we're all hearing too much. Some of it will be rumour, and some of it will be nonsense. But some of it will be on the money. And whether Ncuti's been sacked, whether Ncuti's already left, whether RTD's been sacked, whether Bad Wolf have been sacked, whether Disney's coming back or not, there are so many rumours going round. And then in the meantime, what's put on TV is very triggering to many people. And even if I wasn't going to be volatile, I'll take the word triggering away, and instead I'll say a lot of people are tuning in for Doctor Who, but it's not Doctor Who. So basically, in front of the camera and behind the camera, Doctor Who's in a bit of a mess.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Well, I mean, as I say, they might decide to bring it back in 2-3 years' time. And that's what it looks like on the face of things.
We thought that, didn't we? We thought basically hiatus, that was the rumour, that it'll come back in 2027. I did a stream about that last week with all the evidence, although I did question a lot of it. And I said they were leading last week the Mirror on it. Sorry, get my head right. The GAN is assembling. Let me just get them in order. Sorry, folks. It's you can see we're doing. Sonny, thanks for joining us. You've heard me going through the slides. Where do you stand on this? Are you a cynic? Do you believe this has any truth?
Okay, if Gatwa was regenerating, first of all, that will. No, that's not me. If Gatwa was regenerating, that would be a positive thing. I don't think he's regenerating. I think we're getting season 3. I don't think they plan to regenerate him, but pressure up top is probably forcing them to regenerate him if we don't get it.
Right. Okay. Right. I'll keep going. I can't deal with everything it was. So, Doctor Who exterminated. Bin the Star. He's been sacked because of possibly what he didn't do with the Eurovision, they say. By the way, if there's echoes and everything, everybody, it's better than me ending the stream early because I sound like a Dalek. So basically, you take what you take. I've taken off all the echo balances and all the nonsenses because Restream reckoned that was fighting my mic. So basically, if there's a bit of an echo, hello, welcome to the real world. So, this was the article. Doctor Who's wokest ever lead star, Ncuti Gatwa, axed after just 2 series with the show to be paused after ratings nosedive. Tell you what, if I had Rachel on, she'd say, it's Colin Baker all over again. 2 series. He wanted to do more. Wonder if he wanted to do more. You can see I've got corroboration here from other newspapers. Last time they didn't jump on the bandwagon. So I've got 4 newspapers there. But Sonny, it seems to have come from this Eurovision. You can see there, they're not supposed to have flags in the audience, but somebody had a Palestine flag, and there's Israel doing their performance, which in the end came second. And Ncuti Gatwa may have been bricking it that they were going to win. So basically, that's the situation. And as you know, 2 minutes after Israel was announced to be in the final, he had unforeseen circumstances that have not been confirmed or given details on. And then...
It goes into Gatwa being difficult to work with, which doesn't surprise me based off of how he plays the Doctor, and it doesn't feed into the good PR, which is why other people are pushing him out, not RTD probably.
Yeah, just to confirm to everybody here, a TV, this is what they're hanning the whole article on. A TV insider said if the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, it was well and truly hammered in after that. Bosses were incredibly disappointed. Ncuti, as the Doctor, is one of the corporation's most high-profile faces. His withdrawal from the Eurovision was incredibly embarrassing. It caps what has been a largely depressing tenure. Now, we don't know who the source is. There's no name. But I have to say, I don't have sources. I've always prided myself. I'm just a normal Doctor Who fan who works things out or shuts my face. But people have told me, so it's a source, pass in to somebody else who then passes it eventually to me. So I'm claiming nothing. But what I have heard, lads, is that Ncuti was difficult behind the scenes, has caused tension. That's why I find it funny when you see all the interviews with Belinda Chandra and Ncuti. They're all over each other like a rash. You know, it's like, whoa, God, this is so unbelievable. You know, that false laugh, like, you know, all that. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm convinced by this. However, but then you hear the stuff behind the scenes and the anger behind the scenes and how some back, you know, people really don't like him. So you just try and add two and two together. And like I was saying earlier, lads, and I wonder what Jeremy and Sonny think. I was saying to Christian, I wonder if RTD has been under a lot of pressure because of the Disney fallout, because of the ratings, and all the stuff they've tried to cover over. And RTD's taken a lot of flack because he picked Ncuti, and now he's thrown him under the bus because he let him down. That's that's what I'm contesting, Jeremy and Sonny.
But that's right. That Russell T Davies should take the flak for it because the buck stops at the top, and therefore he should stand down, resign, and let a new producer take over. Because if he does get season 3 and 4, it'll be exactly the same as season 1 and 2.
Sonny, what do you reckon?
A scapegoat would have been nice for RTD, and this Eurovision play makes Gatwa very easy to paint as unprofessional, as very difficult, right? This is all his fault. The show's definitely not doing what he said it was going to do at the beginning. So it seems like too good of a timing, but based off of the way they designed the first Black Doctor, he was always meant to be a fall guy, in my opinion.
Watkin, that doesn't surprise me. He sounds like a right spoiled diva, especially considering his background and where he came from. I mean, rumor on top of rumor on top of rumor, but suddenly an insider says this, and we've been hearing from other insiders apparently. And of course, I think Christian, you reckon there was going to be a hiatus, yeah?
Yes.
Jeremy, you reckon there was going to be a pause?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sonny, were you reckoning there was going to be a pause?
1 year. Well, other than that, no, I don't think so. I hope not.
Right. So the majority seems to think that we were heading for a pause at least. Why would they do a pause? Is it just because Ncuti's busy, RTD's busy? The scripts are ready. You see, the scripts are ready. Remember, they've told us the scripts are ready. So if the scripts are ready, then you just have to kind of book your stars and get on with it, don't you?
Didn't he also say he ran out of ideas, or he doesn't have enough ideas? But the scripts are ready.
Well, we haven't seen any ideas this season, really. I mean, they're not ideas; they're like soap opera plots, really. I mean,
if Russell T Davies says he's got the scripts ready, I'll say, prove it. Show us the script then.
Well, we were saying this even in February that it almost sounds like a job interview. If he is under pressure and he's going, but he did say, and I will give credit, in the Imagine documentary in November 2023, he told Alan Yentob that while he was traveling to work that day, he was already, he had an idea for the end of a cliffhanger in season 3. He mentioned 2026.
I think it's going to be more like 2028 or 2029, something like that, before you see a new season of Doctor Who, because the BBC doesn't have the money to get season 3 up and running.
If RTD has stories ready and it's contingent on the actor they cast in the role, that would play a significant part in whether those scripts are viable. He said originally he was out of ideas. Then he came back and was doing Disney Who. But all the content for Disney Who has been highly agenda focused. So maybe what he was out of was original story ideas, but he wasn't out of agenda ideas to push. And the only thing I can theorize is that if he has more stories lined up, that they will be more of what we've already seen. I'm not sure that would be a bet the BBC is willing to take at this point, given the numbers, the return, and the loss in popular appeal.
Well, you've got Mudcrab here. The supply line has been stopped. They haven't made or are not currently making any new episodes. Agreed. There is nothing ready to screen. Agreed. No Christmas 2025. Yep. No season 3 in 2026. Agreed. The show is already on pause. Agreed. So the point is, why is, I mean, okay, it's a leak. That's all I can say. But why would the BBC even be bothered to be embarrassed? Remember, the story is the BBC are embarrassed by him withdrawing from the Eurovision. But if you're already on a pause, who cares? So there's something missing here.
That's the only thing that the BBC are embarrassed about, because he didn't do Eurovision. I think they should be embarrassed about season 1 and 2.
Yeah, but it's mad, isn't it? Because all he had to do, this is what I mean. He's either very seriously ill, but he's not in any hospital, so that's not true. He suddenly had dysentery, a bout of diarrhea, and suddenly, he couldn't go. This is right. This is it. This is how long it would take. He'd go, and they go, we're going live to Ncuti Gatwa in London. Hello, and he'll do some kind of wee, and then, do you like my outfit? I am the doctor, and he'll play with his sonic screwdriver, and then he'll go, right. These are very good evening. Well done, Europe. Well done, Basil. You've had a brilliant night. The usual plaudits. And then suddenly he'll go, these are the results of the United Kingdom. 12 points go to Israel. And that's all I had to do. I mean, it's not killer. I mean, really, he could have had dysentery and still delivered those lines. So it is embarrassing that suddenly he just went walkies.
It goes back to him being unprofessional, and the fact that the BBC can't control him in the way that they want him to, right? He bent the knee to the dresses, he bent the knee to the acting, to the plots, but when it comes to like, all right, we need you to do this Eurovision stuff, they can't control him to do that. Now it's kind of embarrassing, right? Because they can always get their actors to do this gig, and now he's not doing the gig. It makes them all look weak, and it's I don't believe in the money cope, because I think the BBC can make it in house and it looks cheaper and it looks different, but it won't have Gatwa in it, right? And they're sending too many missed messages where it's confusing an already confused show.
I just find it really, I find it so interesting that this has happened, because I wonder, and I know I've just said it in one version already, but I'm going to add even more to this theory. RTD taking flack for Ncuti. We've all been going on about touching grass, and the reason is Ncuti. Ncuti was the one who said go and touch grass. Ncuti was the one who used that phrase about white people. I'm not going to use the phrase here begin with G. Ncuti was the one who talked about white mediocrity and having to push a black agenda. RTD might have been sat in the same room as him, but once somebody's spilled out those words, you have to try and defend them and support them because they're your lead star and cover the cracks. And I just wonder how far RTD has been really trying to paper over an awful lot of cracks. And let's be honest, RTD, even in his crazy bouts of slagging off governments and that, has never said go and touch grass. And RTD has said it's a show for everybody. He even said if you're as straight as whatever, the show's got something for you. And remember, he put Sutek in and various other characters to keep people like Jeremy on board. So I wonder whether RTD has really been trying to protect his star and he's let him down.
Well, that could be a part of it. But you have to remember also that if cracks are forming in concrete. Sometimes the problem is the material you've chosen to create that concrete mix. There could be some personalities involved in this which are not a good fit and have made a very unstable form of concrete. Now
Do you
he's got
think?
cracks to cover over.
Yeah, I mean,
The person who created the concrete, made the concrete, was Russell T Davies. So
do you know?
the cracks are his responsibility. So the buck still stops with him.
I always love an extended metaphor when in the end all we're doing is talking about concrete. But
He didn't really cement a relationship, did he? Really?
yeah, it reminds me of a story when my brother was only 3 and our next door neighbour had just laid a very long drive of cement, a very long drive. And my brother, like I said, he's only 3. Hello, and the man just said, "Stay there, stay." There. All the way through. Now, what's that got to do? Well, taking Jeremy's idea of being a concrete mixer, I think we've got this idea that basically Ncuti has just gone, RTD's gone, I've got this brilliant idea for a 2-season Doctor Who. The Bi-Generation starts it and the Bi-Generation finishes it, and I'm going to have Sutek back, and I think the world is going to be excited. And then your star starts, like my brother, walking through all the wet cement and saying, "Go and touch grass, white mediocrity," and RTD's thinking, hold on. And then, of course, he's highly political. I cannot be seen to be giving Israel any points. I've suddenly got a bout of diarrhea. I could say, "Oh, clear off. I've had your back, Ncuti," and suddenly you do this. All you had to do was read 3 lines out.
Well, he must have known that there was a chance that Israel was going to be in the Eurovision Song Contest, and it could have been picked. So he should have stayed clear of it. If it meant so much to him, politically wise, then he shouldn't have just put his name in the ring, or he should have said to the BBC, "No, I don't wish to do it."
True, but I bet RTD believes all of the same things Got was saying, right? But he can put it aside to do the show. He can put it aside to get his paycheck. Gatwa didn't in a very important moment, it sounds like, for Britain. And now we're taking the fallout. The whole show is.
I think the reason probably was that it would dovetail quite nicely with the episode for him to be in Eurovision.
Yeah, right. It was meant to be a connection thing, right?
It would be a bit of kudos for the show, I suppose.
Now, David Harding in Toronto, probably going, "Gosh, isn't Brendan in bed?" Or is he? Every time Brendan does a late live stream, he must be heading. Yeah, he must be heading to Spain in the morning. No, not this time. But David Harding in Toronto, wasn't someone rumoured to have been cast before Ncuti, but then changed his mind? The version I've heard is that somebody was cast iron cast, and they had to pay them out of that contract for quite a bit of money. I'm not giving the name because that's not fair, and to be honest, I've got no evidence. But David Harding, I think it's worse than that. The rumour is that somebody else has got the contract, and RTD said, "No, it's Ncuti," and so the BBC had to pay somebody else out. Now, you can imagine why, therefore, this kind of concoction of a story is RTD would be so peed off with Ncuti if he says, "I can't read out the lines that Israel's got some points." You have really caused me hell. I can see that. Am I good at doing fiction? Do you want to make me showrunner? Or do you think it's not fiction and I'm onto basically the truth between all the bits?
I think the bottom line is because the ratings, and I think that's the reason why.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for mentioning the ratings when it's my last slide. No, I'm only joking. I had it up earlier. Just to remind everybody of the context. The context, I did a show about it the other day, and I tried to say to people through the crackling of the mic then, I tried to say to people, I'm being as objective as possible. You can answer the rhetorical question, Doctor Who ratings internal decline. I'm not going to give the answer. You could say I led you a little bit, but my God, I'm only leading you by the actual evidence. I actually said, do you want to go by the overnights? Do you want to go by the 7 days, or do you want to go by the consolidated? And what I said in every single case is, whatever your metric, from Space Babies to the story and the engine, in only 1 year, can I just say that again? In 1 year. Forget this about television tastes have changed and all that stuff. In 1 year, Doctor Who has tanked 1 million viewers. In some metrics, the ones that actually the BBC prefers, Doctor Who has lost 1.3 million. Is Brendan lying? Right, have a look now. Go to Space Babies, third column. It says 4.01 million. That's the figure for the consolidated for Space Babies. Go down to the story and the engine, 2.7. Doctor Who, in 1 year, on their metric, their favourite metric, 1.31 million have disappeared. Yep, 1.3. That accounts to 34% of the audience of a year ago has disappeared to touch grass. You mentioned, Jeremy, it's all about the ratings. I agree.
Without a doubt. I mean, they've not even been consistently sort of average. They just kept going down and down with a bit of an increase for one of the episodes there. But I don't know what the last two are going to be like. I think the ratings will be down for the next two.
Eastlyn Burkholder, I want to read the books made on the making of this Doctor Who. Brendan, I believe your theory. Oh, there you go. You know, conspiracy theorist Brendan. I'm not normally like that, am I? But yeah. Sonny, the figures. I mean, I don't know if you saw my show the other day, but am I onto something with all these figures? Do you think it is as bad as I'm making it sound?
I did listen to the show. I loved it. I don't know how you can argue it. I wouldn't sweep against it, and nobody else who talks about it on YouTube even talks about the figures because you can only see a downward spiral, the downward trend.
Yeah, and I thought I was being fair. That pick the metric that's your favourite one. I ask you the question: is Doctor Who internal decline? By the way, how come Race Across the World's ratings have increased? That's maybe because people want to watch it.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's the same story since the beginning of time. It's the same way TV got started. Interesting stories.
And the truth is, look, I mean, Jeremy's got a nice kind of green screen behind him, but the truth is, we all know, if I'd given Jeremy time, I'd have said, oh, show me your K9, show me your Dalek, show me your Cyberman helmet, show me... He's got all the stuff. Jeremy is a dyed-in-the-wool Doctor Who fan, aren't you, Jeremy?
Yeah.
And only tonight he's rushed on. Normally I grab him reading, you know. But basically, he's a Doctor Who fan. He's the type that you can almost assume will watch it even if it is crap, if you get my gist. As long as it's the right sort of crap. But Jeremy, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm saying your standards are low, Jeremy. Sorry. But you know, I mean, let's be honest. Give us verification here, Jeremy. Tell me, just give us the name of a Doctor Who story that we have seen in the past, in the other era, which was crap.
Classic era.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Haunted Nine Twin Dilemma.
There you go. And you still watched Doctor Who, didn't you?
But I'd still rather watch that than the new stuff. And see, I've not seen the new stuff, but I've seen it on the reviews and stuff.
You've heard enough.
And a few clips, and I've heard enough, yeah.
But the fact that you're not wanting to hang around. John, the other day, he's not getting the Doctor Who magazine anymore because of the agenda.
Yeah.
Dan, our detoxer, Cybermat Strikes, has stopped watching Doctor Who as well and cancelled his Disney subscription. 3 dyed-in-the-wool Doctor Who fans. You have to assume these people want to watch your programme, and then you build the extras. Now, if the die-hard fans are walking away, you have ballsed it up.
Without a doubt.
And that's when you see, in 1 year, you've lost 1 million. Michael Nemo, good to see you again. I mean, very nice of you. I'll reward you. You know how I can reward you. There's a way of doing it. Let me just take you off for a second. Thank you for that. just to remind everybody, they don't go to bed. They never do. They're obviously busy. Let me just check if they're there. Let me verify. Well, there you go. The Hoopet switchboard. It's such hot news that it's a Brisbane sweatshop, as Tegan would say. Oh, that Brisbane sweatshop. It had 2 Logopolitans in it, didn't it? I mean, it's shocking. Union rights. I don't know. Anyway, Michael Nemo. You had a question, yes. Thank you very much. How long after Chris Eckleston leaving did we actually know what happened? I bet around 2033 we'll hear about all the things happening now. Well, did you read Gary Lee's account, Jeremy?
I'm not so sure now.
Gary Lee, on his Facebook page, everybody can go there. Gary Lee has tried to join all the dots. Just in the last week, if you look at his posts, Gary Lee, Leigh, he has what he thinks is the story of what happened to Chris Eccleston. He's listened to the quotations and the stories. So Michael Nemo, have a look at that, because I know what you're saying. I still think there's something else going on. I mean, some people said, was Chris Eccleston almost blacklisted, really, after what happened? The version that Gary Lee says is that Chris Eccleston, and he's a good old Mancunian, he defended some of the staff at the bottom, you know, the runners and stuff like that. He defended their rights. And obviously that did not go down well with the production staff. So they got rid. That's the rumour. That's what he says. So hopefully that answers your question a bit, Michael Nemo. Takes a while to come out. As Jeff says, I mean, if I had the video, I'd show it now. Sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner, and I'll come back, says Eccleston. Quite dramatic, wasn't it? And yes, Paul Richards, I know there's no unions for the Hoopets. They're getting no money either. They're getting no money. Tell you what, I'm vicious. But yes, but did you see this, lads, when I was showing this earlier? It's the Sun exclusive, okay, that's actually saying, I mean, it's a good title, isn't it? Doctor Who Exterminated. It's not a good news story, but it's a clever verb. And they're blaming it on this shooty thing. But the man who wrote the article, the actual TV editor, said this. Now, I won't read it all again because I read it earlier, but he's really kicking in the BBC here. I mean, I'll just take a few tasty morsels. Doctor Who's demise is a national scandal. It's part of the fabric of British culture, once the envy of the world. The rot set in when they give it to Russell Davies. Rather than reverse the rokery, so they're obviously slagging off the Chibnall era as well, by implication, and go back to basics, he went for broke and he wrecked it. What an embarrassment. I mean, I could go on, but I think that's damning enough.
It's a very good article, and I think he's got it in one.
Yeah, it's a little signally to the anti-side, right? And it kind of comes out of nowhere because it's not like it's stuff we've been saying for a long time. Like this noise space we've been saying for a long time, and now is a good time, right? Gatwa gave them a perfect opportunity to be a scapegoat. Now's a good time for them to jump on the bandwagon and be like, yeah, you know, maybe it's a leak, but it seems a little pandery.
I think it was planned that it was going anyway before this Eurovision row, and I think this just was really an excuse. Say, oh well, it was down to Eurovision. That's what it was. They've had the ratings. They've assessed the ratings and everything, and Disney have pulled out.
Now, Paul Richards has said something in the thread that I can't say here, but people can read it. You know what I mean? And what Paul Richards, you're saying there, we've all heard those rumours too. And of course, that would give more fuel to my theory that RTD would think, I have defended you and you can't be bothered to read out the results of the UK jury on a Saturday night. And we've actually delivered a whole... It's a bit like John the Baptist, the head on a plate. We have served this expensive, delicious episode is RTD talk to just give you an amazing finale after 2 years, Shooty, and you've just pulled the rug and couldn't be bothered to deliver. And I can imagine. I'm now kind of. I'm like a medium. I'm going through. I'm channeling RTD now. I can imagine the anger.
Could you look Tom Macaron in the thread?
Sorry, say that again. It went funny then.
Macaron.
Okay, I'll have a look if anybody
The
wants to.
Mecronon. Yeah, the Mecronon.
For your information, the story of Shooty's axing has been pulled from the newsfeed. If you Google his name and click on the article, you now get a 404 error. Right. So that's when we have to be. That's why we've been asking the question, haven't we? And we've been saying 4 newspapers. Let's just remind ourselves, everybody, I didn't go live till I had a lot of newspapers saying the same thing. And I also said it was a question. So here we go. Just remind ourselves, the Mirror and the Sun, who never agree on anything. Ncuti Gatwa axed from Doctor Who after pulling out of Eurovision presenting job, and then you've got Doctor Who exterminated there with the Sun. The Sun is the lead one, yeah? And then you've got Belfast Live, and then you've got the Daily Express. I could go on, but if it now says code 404, that all of them, I corroborated it, and they don't normally do that, do they, Jeremy? The newspapers. I mean, when the Sun did that one about it being axed, the Mirror, the Sun came in and said, "Hold on a minute." Am I getting it right way around? It was the Sun who said it was axed, and it was the Mirror who said, "No, no, 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 no."
Well, I mean, either way, I think there's some truth in the story, and that the show is going to be pulled.
Yeah.
Sounds planted to me.
What's that point?
That's the story sounds planted to me. I've always thought we're getting season 3. He's not regenerating. That's what the Cope artist told me to believe. So he can't regenerate. We got to get another season, even if they pause it. And so I think the story is just to drum up talking in the space, because the story of the actual show is really bad.
Well, they'll have to pause it because they can't produce it until 2026. So they can only show it in 2027 if there is a season 3.
Now, John Yulden, who I hope will be on the when we do the ratings on Sunday at midday, but he always does football. Well, we do both do football analogies. It's been briefed. It's the same when a footballer manager is about to be sacked. They have confidence in that, you know the usual. But it, and then we've got IPD. He's saying, "Brendan, what's happening?" Well, I've just been doing a stream late at night. I don't sleep. But the truth is, IPD, if you've just joined us, and I understand people are just going, what's this about? Well, in essence, it's about that. Doctor Who exterminated, BBC, bin, sack, dismiss, Ncuti after the Eurovision row. That's what it's about. And it's been corroborated in 4 newspapers. But the lads are saying it is possible that it's been pulled now. The point is, I haven't said it's true. I haven't said it's false. It's an interesting story. We're Doctor Who fans, after all. I mean, what, we're going to go to bed and pretend and just have our cocoa? Not quite.
Well, I mean, the story's been printed in newspapers now anyway, so it's too late for them to pull it on the internet.
It's documented.
Yes. And I'm sorry, even, right, let's be fair here. Even if it was pulled from the internet, and like Jeremy says, well, they're in hard copy print, what's the story with the Eurovision? I mean, what, Ncuti extremely ill? Or what could be the unforeseen circumstances where suddenly he can't just deliver a couple of lines that says, "Well done" to whichever country? I mean, actors love stardom and actors love the limelight. And well, it would have been the icing on the cake. I mean, you've just had the most expensive Doctor Who episode delivering the Eurovision. The Eurovision does its stuff, and then you late on appear again, almost bookending the night. I mean, you can see how the BBC marketing department would have got very excited about that.
Oh yeah.
And then very excited not when he suddenly said, I've got a bout of dysentery. So, yeah. Boomer Doug, who's now joining in on, he's Miss Marple in Australia there. I think the news feed may have been pulled because of bad timing, not that it's untrue. Not a good look for the impending finale. Boomer Doug, we've been here before. Not a good, we had the Bad Wolf from Parting of the Ways, but we knew Eckleston was already leaving, so we knew there's going to be regeneration. That spoiled that one. Colin Baker, all right, I'll take you to... But we never got to Blackpool, did we? We had a hiatus. I love that word, hiatus.
Well, we almost did get to Blackpool with the Nightmare Fair.
Yes.
The other story on audio.
So Lee Smith, maybe the BBC sacked Gatwa for refusing to do the Eurovision. Well, that's what the story is saying. But then, what I'm saying, Lee Smith, is I'm trying to join the dots. We, as Doctor Who fans, have heard that it's an open regeneration and that he's already gone to LA, has Ncuti, so to speak. So why are we bothered about, why is this happening? I haven't heard that there's a denial, and I haven't heard that there's a confirmation. That's happened with the Millie Gibson thing. But my big question is, forget the BBC now, wouldn't the Ncuti Gatwa agent be really wanting to kill this story?
It's not going to help his career and the next job, right?
Well, isn't it? I'm not saying it's funny, as in I'm trying to kind of jump on somebody's grave, so to speak, but if the story is that he avoided the Eurovision verdict because of his stance on the Middle East, a couple of days later, he's all over the press, and it's kind of saying all that, and it's actually, as you say, Sonny, the negative publicity is there. So you've tried to avoid it, but it's there. And Colin Baker, his career's been fine, but it didn't... I mean, I think it left such a sour taste for Colin Baker when the way he was kind of axed out of it.
Yeah. It was a different kettle of fish, though, back then. I think what they did with Colin was inexcusable, really.
Yeah. David Harding's reminding us that here in Canada, we were 2 weeks behind the UK for the relaunch show, so we knew before we saw Rose that Eckleston was leaving. That's a killer. That's an absolute killer, that. Yeah, that's horrible, isn't it? Just ruins it. So this is where we are, a TV insider. So basically one person, if the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, imagine what a sentence that is. If it isn't already in the coffin, you get that sentence is doing so much. If they are really a TV insider, they're saying there's been backroom trouble, RTD and Disney haven't got on. All the rumours we've heard are in that sentence, aren't they? If the final nail wasn't already in the coffin, strange language, isn't it, for a show that's doing so well in the ratings we hear? Nails and coffins. It was well and truly it was well and truly hammered in after that. Now that really does sound, people saying this is the end of the tether, this is just beyond the pale, the show's been limping for a while, it's a wounded animal. That's the vibe of that. Bosses were incredibly disappointed, is the quotation. Ncuti as the Doctor is one of the corporation's most high profile faces. And then, of course, his withdrawal from the Eurovision was incredibly embarrassing. It caps what has been a largely depressing tenure. Quotation continues. It's unlikely we will see who Ncuti regenerates into, as the Beeb will keep options open. So the argument about it being Billy Piper, Belinda, Chandra, all the rest of it, I think would have made sense to me. But of course, if they have changed their mind from sacking RTD and they've kept him on for a bit longer because he's got all these scripts, that's the snag. That actually, would they allow him to pick the next one? I don't think they would. I think there'd be a different process next time.
Yeah, for sure. You need a completely different process, and it's going to take a year or two.
Yeah. Oh, and this is what kills the momentum in Doctor Who. You can't keep having these gaps. Marine Boy, if a new Doctor is revealed before the break, they'll still not be around to play the part after the hiatus and be replaced. I know there's too much of a. Can you imagine being announced as the new Doctor now, but they're going to start filming in a year? I don't know. That's a bit.
You might find it very difficult to actually get another actor to play the role.
I know, and this is the other thing, and none of us delight in this, that it's killing Doctor Who. But we've got some good news here. I've been hearing from the Brisbane sweatshop. Yeah, my attempt to kill them might have worked. The swines, who the hell are they? They think they're the stars of this show. I tell you what, I hope they've been axed. In fact, Walkie and Willie, you've been sacked. Right, that's what I mean. There's the big news tonight. The Who pets are on the street. Right, Michael Nemo, thank you very much. How sad that Jodie and Ncuti got that word with terrible writing, because I honestly think that they've made fine doctors. Same way I feel about Colin, really. It's a bit of, it's speculation, isn't it? I mean, I would have preferred not to have had a female doctor. I'd have preferred Stephen Moffat not to faff around with gender bending and gender fluidity of the Time Lords. I'd have preferred not. And I know you'll tell me about Destiny of the Daleks. And I know you'll tell me about this, that, and the other. But the point is, you're not going to do it with James Bond. It'll never be Jane Bond. If you want to have a... I mean, this is the point, everyone, lads. Some people liked a female doctor. So a lot of people didn't. Whether she had good stories or not, by the by, I really don't think they should have ever gone there. Because... they had a really great idea of just a spin-off. You could have just launched a spin-off with a female Time Lord, but you don't have to have changed the Doctor. And if everybody wants a female sci-fi lead, let's just watch it happen and see if it works. But we started playing these silly games. So as you say, Michael Nemo, how sad that Jodie and Ncuti didn't get served by good stories. The trouble is, Michael Nemo, how many years are we talking about? I mean, Jeremy, is that about 3 years of Jodie Whittaker? I think it was about 3 years of Jodie Whittaker. 2 years for Ncuti Gatwa. 5 years. I mean, the show has been limping for ages, and it's two different showrunners. And if we're saying the stories aren't very good, well, I'm sorry. If I was the BBC executives, I would be sat there going, I know it's a great cash cow, but it looks as though whatever writer we throw at this, we can't make it stick anymore. Let's just cancel the whole blooming thing.
Well, you've got to have somebody that's a head of series and serials to look at the scripts before they're actually commissioned, and to make sure that they make sense and to make sure that they work. But I don't know if there's anybody going to tell Russell T Davies, to the contrary.
Yeah. Now, this is the other interesting thing, and Watkin, you reminded me of something here, because, lads, they love to do these announcements, don't they? It was very famous. I think it was in the 2005, I mean, Jeremy might remember, it was the BAFTAs or the TV Awards, and was it Jane Tranter announced that there would be 2 more series of Doctor Who? She actually, yay, and everyone's cheering. Or in reverse, I suppose, you could say, this is the moment we could have had the Doctor, hello, I am the Doctor, everybody, hiya, welcome world, and all that nonsense. And then he goes, and as well as giving 12 points to Israel, I want to say that there's a season 3, and there's the bit, and everyone goes, wow, and you can see that didn't happen. We didn't get any confirmation of season 3 at a peak moment of marketing. So since that wasn't delivered, it tells you that the season 3, is it really happening?
I don't think so. As I said, they've got to get the money to produce it, and that could be a long way off. Or they've got to get some other streaming platform to give them some money to produce season 3, whether it's Disney again or somebody else.
Yeah. Sorry. Sonny.
In 2027, isn't there a question about BBC's
the license.
viability? Its
Yeah.
license?
That's right. They've got to decide whether they're going to renew the what they call it,
Oh yeah, they're good. This happens all the time, though. We've gone for years of
BBC's charter.
yeah. Nigel Walker here, Sonny. I hope RTD and Ncuti both go. We need a complete break from this era. I know he probably wouldn't do it, but Mark Gatiss has done some great adaptations of classic ghost stories, which I enjoy. Would you buy into that, Sonny?
I, Going a classic route or ghost stories, yeah, I'll buy into anything that's new at this point.
I mean, here, Christian, I think a series 3, says David Hardin, is still a possibility, but what shape that'll take and what it will look like is anyone's guess. But actually,
Yeah.
Christian, I think what David Hardin should really add to that sentence is, yes, there might be a season 3 or series 3 in 2029, 2030. I mean, yeah, one day.
Well, I'm looking at the BBC trying to weather another economic storm in 2027. They not only have to consider the cost of producing this show, they have to consider the health of their organization to begin with. And if you have to push this to 2026 and then to 2027 and then to 2028 and the gap grows longer, it starts to remind me of the 1990s. They made
Yeah.
lots of noise in 1990 and 91, and then it started to eventually evaporate.
And as we've said, there's a lot of Doctor Who fans, and I did a stream on it ages ago. Basically, when I asked the fans on my Twitter feed in an opinion poll, there you go, 20% at that point said cancel, 17% said reboot, which is a version of saying, can we just stop for a while? 41% at that point said continue, and 22% said rest. Now, the maths therefore said 60% think RTD is getting it wrong, but obviously the devil was also in that 41%, because most of that 41% was saying to me, they want Doctor Who to keep going, but under a different team. So in other words, because the opinion poll at X was basic, I couldn't read between the lines anymore and say, I think the figure's 75%. I couldn't do that. It clearly is much more than 6 out of 10 Doctor Who fans 4 months ago thought RTD was aiming Doctor Who in the wrong direction, was doing the wrong thing with the content. And I think that's gathered momentum now, hasn't it?
To the point where the articles are even changing. That's pretty interesting. Like, how long can they kick the can, right, and lie to themselves?
This era has been haunted by bad press. It really has.
Yeah.
And I don't delight in that, because actually once a program gets a lot of bad press, I think it's just wounded. And when we're talking about will it come back in 2027 or 2028 or 2029 and all the rest of it, my concern is we're only doing seasons of 8 episodes now. Then there's a long gap in between anyway, nearly a year, give or take a Christmas episode. I know we've got the 5 episodes of the Sea Devil spin-off still to show, but that's not Doctor Who. That's just something separate. Now, because the seasons are shorter, and then there's going to be a massive gap, my concern, and it really is a concern, not hyperbole, you're going to get a generation of kids coming through school who don't really know about Doctor Who. As a teacher in the past, I've said the kids have stopped talking about Doctor Who. So there's a generation coming through already. If it goes off the air for another few years, to a kid, 2 or 3 years is a long time. I remember waiting for the Daleks to come back between 75 and 79. I mean, that was a lifetime. Whoa, God. So I actually think we're missing the generation out. And I have to say, that's such a sadness that kids don't see Doctor Who as the thing now, and they don't even know what it is. I'll say one more time, Sonny, you won't believe this. When I was teaching, I had a big full-size cardboard cutout of a Dalek on my mobile desk. And I thought, how stupid, I thought the joke was when a kid said something cheeky, the desk, it was like one of those computer desks, it could go up or down. So I'd elevate the Dalek and go, hey. Well, the kids thought, why is that idiot doing that? Why R2D2's not scary? And when the kids told me, they thought the Dalek was R2D2.
Yeah. I was
So,
like,
you know,
I was just thinking, like, there's already a generation of people who didn't know what Doctor Who was. Honestly, I should have been part of that generation. I kind of caught it at the very end, and like they were going into Capaldi when I was getting into Doctor Who, basically. So, why is? Sorry, I can't.
it's
You
all
go
right.
ahead, DD.
In a way, I was going to be accidentally insulting, but not. You're a fluke, aren't you? That we got you into Doctor Who because you didn't catch it at the time that it should have been capturing you. Is what you're kind of saying, isn't it?
Even for season 2, because I missed the marketing for it. Like I didn't know season 2 was happening. I kind of just got lucky that I got back into Doctor Who, and people were like, "Oh, season 2 is starting up," and I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna watch that," and then I ended up watching it.
Yeah. Well, so final words, lads, because IPD, for example, he says balance of probability, Ncuti is fired, question mark. I think the BBC doesn't like to do that. Gary Lineker left of his own volition at the end of this next week instead of the embarrassment of it. The BBC tend to look after their own. I'm not naming them, but we've got some terrible criminals who work for the BBC, and there's I'm not aware of the BBC ever really sacking many people. Are you, Jeremy?
No. They tend to be somewhat protective until when they can't be protective, and then they believe.
Sometimes I think it's a case of the verbiage in a media article is designed to be provocative.
For sure. Get clicks.
So this is designed to trigger just the kind of dialogue we're having here, which I'm sure the media, those news organizations would be very happy is happening.
Well, Watkin here, another question. Will the hardcore fans even care to keep it alive this time? I do think the Wilderness Years gets a lot of airplay, but just like RTD 1 and RTD 2 are different, lightning doesn't strike twice. I know you can have a lot of creativity and fans' generations grow up. I think the big issue, Watkin, and I'll see what the lads think, is not necessarily whether they care anymore. The thing is, I think the only version I would ever spend time scripting a new series of Doctor Who or New Adventures books and all that stuff, or Big Finish, is everybody would have to be able to come up with a solution to the mess. I think no longer can you just go away and go, oh, we've got some adventures of what McGann does next. And no. Every Doctor Who fan worth their salt knows there's a big gaping hole and mess that has to be resolved. And whether they bite the bullet and say, actually, since Capaldi, I never was buying into that, because I don't think you should ever erase a Doctor. But whether you kind of park it in an alternative, I just think the Wilderness Years Part 2, if they ever exist, I think the creativity will have to go into a certain option. Because I could not be bothered, Watkin, to just write stories knowing that there's the Timeless Children, there's the Flux, there's the Bi-Generation twice, there's the Sledgehammer TARDIS, that the Doctor turns gay. For God's sake, where do I start? I couldn't be bothered. I'll go and get a life. What do you reckon?
There's too many loose ends, isn't there, that need tidying up?
Yeah, it's not like the Wilderness Years where, well, Doctor Who's not on the TV, but we'll keep it going. That's a very different vibe to going, do you know what? I hated the last 7 years. Do I want to now write some scripts? No. What would you say to that, Christian?
I would say that if there's another Wilderness Years coming, it's far less likely that there's enough capital affection for the series to bring it back after an extended hiatus. Only in that they've managed to create so much ill will and do so much damage that it's very hard to get around. When the series originally wrapped in 1989, it stopped.
Yeah.
They did not totally destroy what had gone on going all the way back to, say, 1980. Instead, it just got weaker. There were issues, but it was still Doctor Who, measurably so. Now that's not the case. Now you've got RTD1 and Moffat, followed by really a long interregnum of not Who
Yeah,
that
this is.
has chased away all of the fans.
Yeah. I mean, well, however controversial we want to be, Sonny, you could argue about the last 5, 6 or so years may not have been to everybody's taste. Doctor Who. Now, if you say we're hitting a generation there, add to that the gap that might be coming, you have lost a full lot. And, even when he talked about a hiatus in the future to the CBBS news round the other day, RTD said the younger generation of writers will bring it back. Well, only if they've heard of the bloody thing, only if they actually have a love for it. Why would a young writer want to make their career on the back of an established idea by somebody else? You want to make your name with your own ideas. Who said Doctor Who? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. No, in comic books, it's kind of the same thing. Like you wouldn't in the back in the day, you would go in to write, and like it would be a good accolade to like write for Spider-Man, to write for Superman. But now you really want to build your own universe and like sell it through that way, so you can keep creative control. And it's kind of, you would think that writers would think the same way, but there is a lot of Doctor Who fans dedicated enough that are kind of youngish. I don't know if they'll give them a chance though, because it seems like it's hard for them to bring in new talent, I guess. I also just don't understand why it's so expensive. Like maybe a hiatus, if a new writer does bring it back, it would look completely different and it just won't be Doctor Who anymore.
Do you know what? It's not rocket science, that Interstellar Song Contest will have been very expensive because of the CGI, but did it deserve it?
And it didn't need it. And if they were forced to do it in house, it might have came out more charming. It might like.
The Nigerian episodes, that whole marketplace was unnecessary to be filmed because it didn't add to the narrative. I can see the prosthetics and all that Eurovision audience, all those extras were different monsters and everything. It was a waste of money, really. So I can see how you could save money quite quickly. I think the issue has been RTD's been very happy just spending it. But that's always the name. That's public service for you.
If you don't spend it right, you get a smaller budget, right? So like inflation is killing Doctor Who in an economical way.
Yeah. So just to remind everybody as we're about to depart, just to remind you, why did we even bother doing this tonight? I wouldn't have done it on just one article. I checked with the team, and there was corroboration. And so basically, and I've played safe. I've said, is the Doctor Who star axed? Now, there's your two articles, the Mirror and the Sun, who don't normally agree with each other. The lead article is the Sun. The Sun is the one that does the heavy work. They're the ones who've said this. They're the ones who, have said it was axed a few months ago. So here we go. And so the other newspapers have joined in, and they seem to be all linking to the Eurovision event. That's why tonight we've done an emergency live stream. We are not being alarmists, and we're not being stupid. We know nothing more than we did yesterday. But it just seems to me, Christian, the dots could be joined a bit more now.
I think you're right. Bottom line is, I think Gatwa is out. The conditions surrounding his departure may have been colored a little bit, but I feel that he's gone.
Yeah. Sonny, your final words on this? And then I'll come to Jeremy. Sonny?
Good timing, Gatwa. Good job. He's our doctor.
There you go. Jeremy, your final words on this?
Well, there's an old saying, there's no smoke without
and it's smoking.
yeah.
Everybody in the thread, thank you. I will just say this: I don't delight in this, and I haven't jumped in and said he's sacked at the end of the world. We will discuss it and every version of it. I think when me and Christian started, we were checking on that verb hammered, but you know, we'll soon find out. But since the finale seems to be having, you know, from Omega to Belinda to Susan being in it to the Rani maybe being the Doctor's sister, it's like, what the hell?
The only pleasure we get out of it are those people that say, no, it's not been cancelled. There's nothing to see here. It's still going to go on. There's going to be season 3 next year.
We'll soon know. But Sonny and Christian, it's only in 2 days' time. On Saturday night, we'll be here again, won't we? Doing
That's
our
right.
first impressions. My R's and W's. Our raw reactions. At least I don't sound like a Dalek tonight.
Wish world.
Anyway, everybody, have a good night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Of course. It's great to have you all back. Good night.